How you doing, everybody? This is Ragnarok64 here. Just decided to do a different type of video than typically video game or card game content. Basically, because I couldn't find this information when I was trying to look it up beforehand. So, figured I'll go ahead and make a video of my own so people in the future, if they have a similar specific question, specifically about comparing different Bristol boards, that at least this will be out there for them to look at. So, what I have here, just a few of the different Bristol boards that you might be able to find at your local art supply store. Some of the more affordable options that people may be wondering about, how they stack up, which one to spend their money on, so on and so forth. So, quick comparison we'll go ahead and do here. Now, I've attempted this a couple of times, and this camera doesn't like to focus. So I'm going to go ahead and put the paper on some tackle boxes. Hope they don't slide off my desk. And see if we can get it to focus. So first up, in fact, let's move these out of frame. All right, first up is going to be the Blick Studio Bristol board. 100-pound Bristol board, smooth finish, 270 grams per square meter, 15 sheets and a pad. You can get this for, I believe, less than $10 for a pad. So, all right, let's see, get that in frame. Stop sliding around. There we go. And is this going to focus for us? Autofocus? Yes? No? Maybe? Alright. Never mind autofocus. We'll go ahead. Wait, there we go. Oh. And it's moving on me. Great. Everything's working. It's coming up Millhouse. Alright. Forget autofocus. Let's go ahead and do a manual focus here. That way out. That in. Looks about it. Okay. And I also wrote the date on these because sometimes the manufacturing changes, and a paper that I might suggest or that performs well now, a few years down the road, it may not. So that's just the nature of the beast. So first up, went ahead and using a technical pen, just did a couple lines, wrote the information, did a couple horizontal lines, just to test feathering. Now, you're not going to be able to see it on this video, but there was just ever so slightly a bit of feathering, specifically on the lettering. From where the ink actually met the paper, it spread out a little bit. Nothing to really be concerned about, but the lines did lack a slight bit of crispness to them. But overall, they performed pretty well. If you're looking at this skip here, that's where I would just went across the page too quickly. Not an issue with the paper itself. Next up, Pentel Pocket Brush Pen. Great little brush pen. Has actual nylon fiber hairs for the brush tip. So it's different than your typical Micron or Pit pen or Copic multi-liner brush. But again, on the lettering, this paper, the Blick paper, did have ever so slightly a bit of feathering to it. But for the actual lines across the paper, those came in nice and crisp. Next up, I used a dip pen, which is a deleter. I believe it's deleter. Which brand is this one? Okay, it's a Zebra G pen, the pen that I used. And also I used Winsor Newton Series 7 brush and did some lines. Now, with the dip pen and the brush application, I didn't actually notice any real feathering going on with the lettering, and the lines across the paper came out super crisp, so those performed really well. even compared to the brush pen and the brush pen and the tech pen. So the difference there is probably because the brush pen and the tech pen likely use a much thinner formula of ink, because the same ink for this for the tech pen that has to go through this, what is this? This is a 1 point, you can't see that, but it's a 1.2 millimeter tip, but that same ink has to also go through a 0.25 millimeter, 0.25 tip. So it has a very thin formula. And same thing with that pocket brush pen. It also likely has a very thin type of ink, so it doesn't end up gunking up the nylon bristles. And that's probably why you saw a bit of feathering. And you'll see that carry through to the Copics a bit. I did a quick test with colored pencil. I don't use colored pencil a lot. I usually just use it for doing color in backgrounds, and then use odorless mineral spirits to blend it out for mixed media pieces. But those, I mean, they applied well enough. If you're doing pencil as your main media, you would likely want to use a vellum surface paper instead of a smooth surface paper, but that's a different type of video for a different type of artist. So onwards to the Copic comparison. Just the light a little bit. So Copic's blended pretty well here. Again, with the lettering, there was a little bit of feathering that, again, you probably won't be able to pick up in the video too well, but nothing outside of the normal that you wouldn't expect from an alcohol-based marker. My blend here with the cool grays worked out just fine. With the earth tones, with the E50 family, they worked out okay. Now, one thing of note, I was just doing a 3-color blend, and when I do that, I noticed the lightest colors, the E51, and specifically the C1, they actually wanted to dissolve out the medium tone, so you don't get quite as smooth of a blend. And here I did do a 5-color blend using Copic wide markers, using the Warm family. And those blended okay. You'll notice a little bit of streaking with the what would have been the W1, and that is just because I filled the marker after I did this swatch, or did this blend rather, because it was running out a little bit. And you'll probably pick up like a little bit of shine on the W9. I don't know if that's because this paper actually was hitting its limit. Doesn't seem like it. So the W9 ink may have been just a little bit older and didn't want to absorb into the paper as readily. I also added a few more drops onto that to fill that marker after this test. All right. So next up is you can already see what's coming after, but the Canson XL Bristol. This stuff comes in an orange cover. The XL series is Canson's student grade paper, and the XL is because the pads of paper for it come in a higher capacity than pad typically would. You notice the Blick one was 15 sheets. This is 25 sheets, and the pricing is pretty similar. And in fact, this came as a buy one, get one free. So the Canson XL paper is probably going to be one of the more affordable options that you have available to you, depending on what's on sale at the time. So the Canson paper here, it performed pretty similarly to the Blick paper. There was slightly less bleed, which actually was kind of interesting to me because the actual finish on the paper, the Blick paper felt smoother than the Canson paper, but the Canson didn't really have any bleed on the Pentel brush lettering or on the Tech pen compared to the Blick paper. But either way, the inking went on just fine. Dip pen, the brush, no problems. The marker, or not the marker, the pencil, pretty much about the same kind of finish you got when applying the pencil there. Copics also, they blended pretty well. I feel they blended a little bit better on this paper than they did on the Blick paper, and the bleed was a bit less. Like right here, this point is where I held the chisel tip of a Copic on the paper for about 5 seconds, and this paper actually had the least amount of bleed of any of the papers that I tested for that. And again, my blend here, I'd refilled the marker by this point so you don't see the streaks in the W1, but it blended out fairly nicely. Still, you ran into the same issue where some of the lighter colors wanted to dissolve out the middle tones as opposed to blending straight into them, so you had to work it a bit more, but you can see with the E50 family, those blended quite nicely. Next up was the Strathmore 300 series Bristol. Strathmore's 300 series stuff comes in this yellow paper here, or yellow cover. There we go. Student grade paper, same as the other ones, 100 pounds. This one's reports as 270 grams per square meters. You get 20 sheets in a pad. I believe this is also a sub $10 pad. There we go. Sub $10 pad of paper. So the first three, they're all within the same price range. And this is also smooth paper. Now, again, with this, with the Tech pen, with the brush pen, no discernible feathering that I could see with them. From really well. Colored pencil. This was actually my favorite one for the colored pencil, with at least the smoothness of the application. Either it's just due to the smoothness of the paper itself, or I don't even know what, but the colored pencil seemed to go on there pretty well. And with the lettering, when I was writing out the Copic names, not a whole lot of feathering going on there. And I actually feel that of the papers I tested, I feel this actually had the best blending properties of any of them. Even the cool gray blend, I didn't have as much issue with the C1 wanting to dissolve out C5. The E50 family blended just perfectly. The warm gray blend was, I feel, the best on this paper of any of them. Now, I did make it a bit wider on this paper than I did on some of the other ones. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think I did that intentionally, and that might have helped it to blend a bit better, but like you don't really see the edge of gradation from one color to the next. And this is a 5-color blend blending through. So this was honestly probably my favorite paper of the ones that I tested out. Next one up here is the Strathmore 400 series Bristol. So this one doesn't list the paper weight, but it is a 2-ply Bristol paper. Smooth surface. 400 series is, as you would guess, it's better than their 300 series, at least higher quality should be than their 300 series of paper. But this one actually gave me the most trouble of any of the papers. Now, all the ink went on just fine. In fact, this performed, I'm looking at this now, and this performed immaculately with all of my ink applications. But honestly, all the papers worked out pretty well with ink. The only one that I felt had any real feathering going on was the Blick paper. Color pencils, nothing real noteworthy there. But I had, and I don't know how well this is going to pick up on camera, but I had quite a time trying to blend on this paper with my Copic markers. Like with the E50 family here, you can see kind of the you can visually see where one color stops and the next one begins. They don't really blend through that easily. I had to, and you also notice that it's darker than the other papers because I had to work a lot more to try to achieve a blend, and the blend that I got was not as good as on the other papers. Especially again with the warm grays here. I think that's even picking up on camera. You can see where one color ends and the next one begins as I'm trying to blend those out. So, and in fact, I even wrote in pencil here, difficult blend, difficult blend. Um, so this paper, I expected it to be pretty much the best of the bunch after trying out the 300 series. Figured, okay, 400 series would be way better. But that was not the case. Once the marker went down on the paper, it did not really want to blend out. It didn't really want to move. It just kind of wanted to stay where it was at. Um, One thing of note, it may be due to this being a two-ply paper. Um, this did not bleed through. If you can see that, all the other papers, all the other Bristols, if you look at the back here, they did bleed through. Not really much of an issue if you do any real marker work. Just always remember to tear your page out of your pad of paper before doing work on it. But I don't know if that, or actually no, the thought would be that okay, maybe since this is a two-ply paper, that affected its blending properties. But the Strathmore 500 series paper, this paper is great. It's 100% cotton, Bristol board, plate, smooth surface. You can get it in vellum or semi-smooth. This paper is amazing, and I've never had any issues with blending on. I'll take that back. I've almost never had any issues with blending on this paper. So that's why I had high hopes for the 400 series paper. I just figured it'd be a slightly more affordable two-ply Bristol, but that wasn't really the case. Now, I didn't test this because, again, this paper is great anyhow. But more importantly, this paper is expensive. You're looking at more than $1 per page for the Strathmore 500 paper. So I didn't really want to give up paper just for testing purposes for that, because I already know it's really good. But yeah, that is the comparison here of these Bristol boards that you're likely to run into. So, what's the takeaway here? Where's my screen real estate? Okay. So, the takeaway here. Basically, any of these papers will work for you. If you go to your local Michael's Art Supply, or if you have Blick Art Supply or Terry's Autorama or whatever in your area, and you're looking for just a paper to use to test out on to get you to get used to markers, any of these will work. I would probably steer clear of the 400. It's the most expensive of these papers, and for blending, it performed the worst out of any of them. Now, if you're doing specifically just pen and ink work, I'm sure this paper is fantastic for a whole lot of other things, but for marker, it isn't really worth it to spend the extra for the 400 series when the 300 series Strathmore, I found, performed better than the 400 for marker work, and is going to be significantly cheaper. Now, if you're going for just bulk, the Canson XL Bristol, you can't go wrong with that. It performs well. I mean, there were no real drawbacks to this paper, and per unit, it's probably going to be the cheapest that you can find, especially if they're having like a buy one get one free sale. If you have Blick's Art Supply close by, the Blick paper, it performs fine. Like I said, there was some feathering with the brush pen and the tech pen, but for most finished pieces, that's not going to be an issue. because the amount of feathering you're dealing with, I mean, you'd have to be getting pretty microscopic to even see the differences. So if you have that available to you, or if that paper is available in the size that you need and the other ones aren't, you can go with whatever one you want. Um, but yeah, I would go with any of these three here: the Strathmore 300, the Canson XL Bristol, or the Blick Bristol Smooth. They'll all be fine for drawings or illustrations that you want to do with marker as your focus. And if you need to do like a finished piece, or you're doing something to sell, I would spring and get some of the 500 series, because this stuff is just great for pretty much everything. But that'll be about it. That covers everything I could think of. If you have any other questions or suggestions, other things you want me to test out on what's remaining of these papers, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll take a look at it, see what options got available to me, and try and do that. But if you've stuck with me through for this whole video, thank you for that, and do have a great day.